Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey.
Thanks for joining us again today. Today I have some repeat guests. Lisa Meeks and Brandy Hackett are back with us. If you remember from past shows, they are certified professional geriatric care managers. And we're going to talk to you about what that means. And we have a very special topic that we're going to talk about today, which is celebrating the holidays for those with dementia. We're going to kind of give you a caregiver's guide because this can be a difficult time. I also have a co-host today, Mike King. So, Michael, can you please introduce yourself first, and then we'll get to Lisa and Brandy?
Yeah, I'm Mike King. I'm the Director of Social Services with Homestead, and just happy to be here today, Jeannie, hoping that you're feeling better.
Yeah, Mike is here to help me as I recover from appendix surgery, so I might not be as energetic as normal, and Mike will pipe in as the social worker, Masters of Social Work. Lisa, thanks for joining me again today.
Thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here.
I always love having y'all on the show, and I think this is a very important topic as we do head into the holiday season because it can be daunting to get through the holidays as a caregiver of a loved one with dementia. But first, let's talk about who you are for folks who haven't maybe heard of our last show when you and Brandy were on before. So what exactly is a geriatric care manager?
Geriatric care manager is a medical professional who helps to advise, offer guidance, help with case coordination, patient advocacy, all those kinds of good things that folks sometimes don't have access to and may really, really need. And I kind of liken it, at least right now, these are the things I'm saying, that it's like having an aging or medical advisor, like you would have a legal advisor or a financial advisor. Having a geriatric care manager is like having that aging advisor.
So let me ask you this. In this age of Obamacare, is that something that you also delve into to help folks navigate the way with how that might affect their medical plan and health in the future?
Definitely. There's one caveat, one disclaimer. Some things have not yet been written, so we're not sure what we'll be doing with those things. But as those changes come about, we need to be very well informed so we can advise our folks what is in their best interest in the accordance with changes in the law.
Well, I imagine geriatric care managers are going to be becoming more and more important as folks work out their health care plan for the future.
We think so. We absolutely think so, and love that we've been doing this for a while so that we are experienced and seasoned and can provide the best care.
And, I still have to introduce you, Brandy, and then we'll get back to it. So why don't we just let the folks know. Brandy Hackett, you're back with us. You're a licensed master of social work. And how do you come into play with the geriatric care management program?
Well, I am their newest member to the team at Senior Care Options, and I'd like to think that my background gives me a different perspective. I actually, when talking of Obamacare, I actually also hold an insurance license. Even though I do not utilize it, a lot of the background and training that went into the use of that has been very helpful in trying to interpret some of the laws that are coming down. Also, the background in social work with the experience in hospice as well as bereavement care. I have experience in oncology. I've worked in a skilled nursing facility, and these are a lot of the things that we see on a day-to-day with the patients and clients that we work with and the families and the need for the education in those areas.
Wonderful. And you did mention, because we introduced Lisa and yourself, but you are both with Senior Care Options. And Lisa, you founded this in, was it 2001?
2001.
So you've been 13 years?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to blame that on the drugs.
That's fine.
So that's wonderful. I know we're going to talk today about holiday celebrations for those with dementia, but as we opened, I do think it's important that we talk more about the changes in healthcare in this country and how that's going to impact folks and why possibly having a geriatric care management program in place for your health care is probably more beneficial now than ever, because you all help navigate through what they need and what they don't need, and how to probably also, I'm assuming here, what's best financially in terms of the route to go, and give them options and choices that someone might not have the time to do if they're in the hospital.
That's very true. And we are finding that this is a best use of our services. People are becoming more aware of our services. The challenges are that with the changes in healthcare, when people are in a hospital or even in a skilled nursing facility, that they're not given all of their options, or they're given all of the options, but they're not specific to the person because of the Medicare guidelines, that they may be given whatever is available that day if they're looking for skilled nursing facilities, or they may be given some choices for care, but not all the choices for care. And it's overwhelming because they may be handed a booklet or a list of all of the skilled nursing facilities or hospice companies or home care or home health, and the families have no idea how to choose. And we're here to help guide them as to what would be the best fit for them. And I think that's...
So connecting them to the appropriate resources
Correct.
Is one of the benefits of having a geriatric care manager.
Correct.
Okay, but I also, because obviously I am fresh out of the hospital with an appendix removed, you know, you get there, it's a crisis, you're in pain, you know you have to have surgery, period. Now I leave, I'm waiting on the bills, have no idea how much this is going to cost me, except the surgeon says, oh, it'll be covered by insurance. Is that something you delve into as a geriatric care manager too, the different insurance plans and helping folks understand, you know, what they're in for, or is that not your realm as a geriatric care manager?
We definitely can help with that. And I think, you know, on our team, we do what we can to educate ourselves with the different types of plan options. And we also work with different consultants that are in the community that can offer well-researched, non-pressured options for families. And I think, you know, one good thing about us is that we're there regardless of the environment. So when they start at home and then they end up having to go to the hospital for one reason or another, and then they need to go to a nursing home, et cetera, we are the one thing that remains the same. And I think that's incredibly helpful with families because, you know, as everything is going and changing, and you know, if you talk to people like, you know, what you're going through right now, you know, they'll describe it like being on a roller coaster, and so they're not sure when it's going up, when it's going down, when they're even going to be able to get off. And so to be able to turn and see a person standing there that will have answers, and if we don't have them, we find them. And I think that's a beautiful thing about this discipline, is that the people in it that are certified, that have vested the interest in this discipline, are so naturally curious that we really do try to find the best answer for the family, whether it be a resource that they need, whether it be further education on their insurance. We keep digging, we keep asking, and instead of the family having to become frustrated, we're becoming frustrated, which is fine, and that's what we want.
Right.
You know, we want to shake out those answers.
Yeah, and then sometimes you could get some hospital bills that would be worth investigating and seeing if maybe the coding was right or whatever, and you would advocate for them in that regard. So you, we're going to get to what is a fee for a geriatric care manager, but I'm trying to paint the picture that it may actually pay for itself. Is that something that you do as well?
Definitely. I just had one of my clients bring to me about a $300 bill, and we looked a little closer at it, and we found that actually the Medicare had not even been billed. They had all of her correct information, but none of the insurance had even been billed. So we were able to call the physician's office and clarify, hey, she has coverage, what's going on? And it was one of those magical things where while I was on the phone with them, they just happened to run across her coverage information and went ahead and did the resubmission. So, you know, a typical family will get a bill and think, I need to pay this, which often is correct. But what we found is, you know, with a skilled eye, you can say, hang on a minute, let's take one more look at this.
Or some things might be denied because it wasn't coded correctly, and we, the typical American public, don't understand that. But you all would, and you'd have the right communication and language to discuss it with them. So
Definitely.
yeah. So
and to kind of get back to you had a quick point about that it would pay for itself. One of our team members loves to say that as far as fees are concerned, having a care manager is cheaper than having to pay copays on a broken hip.
Right. Yeah. So what are the charges and fees to have a geriatric care manager?
There is a range. In the Atlanta area, the range is about $90 to $150 an hour. Some care managers are flat fee, some are hourly, some of it is charged by line item. So depending on what they've done, if it's a doctor's appointment, it may be a flat rate. Most of the time, it is an hourly based service.
Okay. And do we have like an average range? I'm just trying to give folks an understanding of what typically it may cost to have a geriatric care manager helping you with your health care plan.
Sweet spot right in the middle, 100, 125 an hour.
Okay. And how many hours typically do you work with the typical geriatric population?
There really is a range, so that's a tricky question. If there's a crisis situation, all bets are off. Got no idea. It just depends how messy it is. For a typical assessment, the way we work, it could take about 10 hours for one individual because we are very, very thorough and also want to include a written report and a family meeting, which is very helpful. For other services, once the client is stable, our minimum is one visit a month. And we just want to stay current, but it varies. So if somebody's doing really pretty well, once a month may be all they need.
Right. Okay, great. I just wanted to get paint the picture again for the folks listening. And if they want to talk to you about geriatric care management for them or their loved one, how can they get in touch with you at Senior Care Options?
You can always look at our website, www.seniorcareopt.com. If you need a care manager somewhere else in the country, you can go to caremanager.org and get a certified member of the National Association of Professional Geriatric Care Managers. Or if you would like to talk to me or to Brandy, you can call 770-579-9177.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm glad that we got that overview out there because there is so much uncertainty right now with healthcare in our country. And again, just from what I went through, it would have been nice to have someone who knew my medical background, who could have helped me. I could have called and got more information. I like to be in the know. You know, I know this is coming. I have to budget for this. I really have no clue. That's probably a problem for me. So let's talk about the holidays.
Okay,
they're coming quickly. You're typically used to celebrating. Families have routines and traditions. And then when you're faced with a loved one who has dementia, it can be very difficult to continue through your holidays like you're used to, not only for the patient, but also for the caregiver. So let's talk about holiday celebrations for those with dementia. Where do you want to start?
Jeannie, if you don't mind, let's do a very, very brief couple liner on what is dementia. I think that is a very confusing term. I had a family actually clarify the other day that said, my mom doesn't have dementia, she has Alzheimer's. So, I think there's a lot of confusion on the use of that word. But basically, dementia is a very general term. And what that means is there is a decline in the mental ability, which is severe enough to interfere with what we call the activities of daily living, which can include lots of things, but you're looking at grooming, dressing, etc. And it also can interfere with parts of their daily life, social scenarios, etc. Alzheimer's is by far the most common. However, it is not the only type. Dementia is not really a specific disease. This is something that is an overall term which describes this huge range of symptoms that people experience. You're looking at decline in memory or thinking skills. You're looking at verbal difficulties. It can lead to general overall decline. And typically it is progressive, which means that the longer the person does have it, typically their symptoms will increase. But that can also vary on the type of dementia that they have.
Thank you for that. That is important. And increased confusion comes with that as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Brandy?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. So we have caregivers struggling with taking care of a loved one with dementia, and we have folks with dementia struggling because they know that they're declining. So what happens now? Where do we start trying to head into these holidays and cope with this time of year?
Well, I think it's important. A lot of us want to have that Currier and Ives picture in our heads of what the holidays may look like for us. And letting go of the perfection is a good place to start, and that it should be a nice experience and what is realistic. So if it is possible, this is a hard thing for caregivers to do, but if it is possible to kind of really take a look at what their loved one can and cannot do, not what you'd like them to do or what they used to do or what you wish they would do, but what they really do. And also to be very cognizant, very aware of the fact that people who have memory impairment live by their daily routine. They don't live by the calendar. We may live by the calendar, but they do not. So they are going to go about the routine of their day. Somebody helps them get up and get dressed, and then they have breakfast, and then they watch Wheel of Fortune or, Price is Right, and then lunch is going to happen, and then we do exercise, and I'm going to take a nap. So it doesn't matter if it's Monday or Thursday or Christmas or Thanksgiving. It has no bearing on that. They go about their routine. So anytime there's a variation in the routine, it exacerbates the confusion because they're used to what they're used to. So it's important for families to really remember that these folks are living by their structured routine, and when you change that and deviate from that, they don't cope well. Their coping strategies are minimal, if at all, and their ability to switch gears, that cognitive ability is diminished. So that's where the challenges come.
And however difficult it may be to really face this head on, objectively, you're actually going to be doing yourself a favor because you can avoid many stresses.
Yes.
And we want that caregiver to understand this is a stressful time and it's going to be more difficult.
Absolutely.
If they don't truly look at where their loved one is at.
Definitely. So things to be aware of would be, what are the physical limitations of their loved one? Are they on a special diet? Can they go up and down stairs? Do they like to take naps? Are there safety limitations for them? How well can they manage their activities of daily living, especially toileting? A lot of families are not, if their loved one lives in an assisted living and they're not involved in the day-to-day care, that may be, pardon the expression, a sticky point. They may not want to do that level of personal care. So then what do you want to do? You can't ignore it. So do you want to have a caregiver that you hire over the holidays to be there for showers, bathrooms, and whatever may need to be done? Or do you need training to be able to do those things? How are you going to be comfortable? Because ignoring it is going to cause a problem. What are the...
And trying to do it all yourself,
Yes.
You're never going to be able to stick to the routine you think you're going to be able to stick to. And that's
on top of all of the holiday chaos that happens, all the kids and the grandkids are coming into town, and they're loud and they're running around. It's distracting. It might be disorienting to somebody with dementia. It just depends on what their behaviors are. And those kinds of things, they may take to it very well and roll with the punches, as it were. And then other times, they may not like those kids. And why are those kids here? And they may just want to go home. And if they start saying, I want to go home, when can we go home? 5 minutes after you got there, then you need to have a plan B.
Well, that was my next question. So is it better... Because I would think it could be very difficult on the caregiver to host the holiday, but if you're used to hosting the holiday, and oftentimes it is the mother or the father, the head of the clan that does host, is it better to keep the patient with dementia, with the person with dementia, in their home, or is it better to go somewhere else so you're not stretching yourself thin and then you leave when you need, and maybe discuss with the family a separate room they can go to and bring tapes of Wheel of Fortune? I don't know.
I think a lot of that depends on a lot of details. In researching this topic, Lisa and I looked at a lot of different things, and unfortunately, like most topics, you're going to get a do it this way or do it this way, and they can conflict exactly what. One of the things that they kept saying is, if this is a home that they're familiar with, even if you have to reinforce some of the care, like Lisa mentioned, that's brought in, sometimes the more familiar the setting, the better.
Yeah.
Then on the flip end, they'll say, because of the chaos that just throwing a party or any sort of celebration can bring, sometimes it is better on the caregiver to have it somewhere else or allow someone else to take on that task. I think where it really comes into play is you need to look at the details of it. A lot of it is how many people are going to be there. Are these people at all familiar with your loved one? Is your loved one potentially familiar with them? And, we have to also remind those listening that, one of the worst things that we hear is, hey, Mama, do you know my name? Who am I? Who am I? And that just leads to this extra level of anxiety. And there's little things that can happen. You walk in, and if you assume to not be known, then you can introduce yourself. And sometimes they'll correct you and say, I know you, Sally, you're my daughter. And that's okay. But for her to be wondering who in the world is that person, it can be very stressful. And
very
often
frightening.
If you're traveling, one of the neatest things that I read was taking what they call a courtesy card that just says, my loved one has Alzheimer's, please be understanding. So if you're in a restaurant or a social situation where somebody just doesn't seem to be handling it well, or maybe it's some kind of tea set up where people are coming in and out, and you just got somebody that's a little bit more rambunctious or not appropriate for the situation, to try to, not cause major attention to it, but at least have them go, hang on a minute, we need to be sensitive. So I think just knowing the environment beforehand. And another tip that we read was making sure that if there are certain things that need to be known, to send out an email beforehand to the family members that'll be there to say, hey, and maybe a new picture. This is Dad now. These are his conditions, and this is what we need to be aware of.
Can I chime in as well? One thing that I stress with the families that I deal with support groups, and then the families that we're working with, when they ask this question, there's a couple of ways you could do this. This is a sliding scale type of situation. There is no clearly defined time when, yes, they can still come to your home, or no, they can't come to your home. Sometimes having a practice run is a good thing without everybody there, and see how they do in a smaller setting, leaving their daily environment. So for 3 or 4 hours for a planned meal, when it is not Thanksgiving and not everybody's going to be there, see how they do. And here's one other thing to think about is see how they do when they return to their community. Because if they pitch a fit because they think you're dropping them off and abandoning them for the first time again, it is not worth doing it. The stress is outrageous. So that is something to
and
be.
Then go see them after.
Yes, and bring the party to them.
Okay. So we never have enough time, but just to reiterate what you said, really what I hear is seek out help. Don't try to do it all yourself, because your day is going to be better if you do that. And sometimes it's very hard for us to do. Try to keep it as routine as possible. Understand that, it may need to be cut short. There may be limitations that you didn't have last year that you have to plan for and be okay with. If you want your loved one to participate in that day's holiday celebrations, you're going to have to be flexible.
Yeah.
And lower your own expectations so you're not disappointed. Let's give a couple more tips. I only have a couple minutes. And then is there resources that we can send folks to get more understanding or tips or call for help before the holidays come?
Well, certainly to talk with the care manager. You can go to alzga.org is the local website for the Alzheimer's Association. They have great information about caring for your loved one, but certainly managing the holidays. I think that would be a great resource.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And don't forget now, if you live in the Georgia area and you need more help with information, or you want to contact Lisa and Brandy regarding Geriatric Care Management. You can contact them at 770-579-9177. And no matter where you live, you can contact them and they will get you to the appropriate area. We do have to take a quick break, and we'll be right back for more tips and gift-giving ideas. So stay with us.
Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey.
We're back. Thanks for staying with us. As you know, we are talking about the holidays and caring for a loved one with dementia, and how difficult it can be as we head into this stressful, chaotic holiday season. And I'm Lisa Meeks and Brandy Hackett with Senior Care Options. They are both certified professional geriatric care managers with Senior Care Options, and they do they run a gamut of services for the geriatric population in terms of helping them with their medical health care plan and getting through crises. But in addition to that, today we're talking about helping you get through the holidays as a caregiver of a loved one with dementia. We talked about how we need to manage expectations, ask for help, understand where your loved one is at in the process and how much they can handle. Really, truly take an objective look at what their limitations are. Because if you can get through the difficulty of being objective, it can mean a huge difference in the quality of your holidays. Did I get that right, Brandy and Lisa?
Yes, that was perfect.
Okay. And so now what we want to do, we talked about, assessing whether it would be better to stay at home or go to a loved one's and have a practice run. We also want to give you some tips on gift giving for those with dementia. And Brandy and Lisa have a slew of ideas in this regard, and I can't wait to share it with you. So who wants to start, Brandy or Lisa?
I think I'll start. Okay. One of the things that it's important to realize is what stage is your loved one at. And if you're not really sure, then ask your geriatric care manager, ask your neurologist or geriatric psychiatrist, whomever you're working with, to get an idea of where on the continuum they are so that you can have an idea of what is appropriate. You always want to select gifts that will promote the highest level of independence possible for this individual. And that's kind of a tricky thing. Again, if you're not really sure, you can always ask. So you don't want to give them something that's too advanced or that does too much for them. It really is something that's kind of a sliding scale. Gifts of food and experiences are wonderful, so not necessarily tangible items or knickknacks. Those are things that lose some of their importance, and having a nice experience, even though they may not remember it for very long, everyone else who participates will. But having a special food is always a nice thing. But we also have some other things to think about. Do you want to go over some of these?
Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking about how dementia affects a person. So I wonder if we could just take a step back, because it is important to recognize that the long-term memory goes last. So they remember what they've known all their lives in terms of what they like to do, correct?
That is correct.
Even though they may forget people. So in terms of gift giving, it would be great to even just go back. We always say keep it simple, but go back to what they know to enhance what we know is their natural like, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. So on that note, what would you recommend in terms of some gifts, general gift giving for those folks with dementia?
Well, I think before we get started with the actual person, one of the major things over the holidays is try to recognize the person that's providing the caregiving. And not that needs to be their primary gift, but to acknowledge that they are spending their time and energy to care for that loved one. And often one of the best things to give caregivers is giving them concrete ways to help. So if it is cooking a meal, mowing the grass, doing the laundry, shopping for the next 6 weeks for the groceries, etc. And then, of course, as we know, anything to pamper that person. Manicures, pedicures.
Let me just pipe in real quick,
yes,
okay?
ma'am.
Because I'm not one that likes to take, I don't generally accept help. And it's been a struggle for me recently, not being able to lift anything, and after having my appendix out. When you're going to be thinking about giving, I love the idea that you said, give them lawn service or cook them a meal or what have you. But be specific about it.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
I'm going to come and do your lawn, next week and 3 weeks from now for free.
Yes.
Or I'm going to cook you a meal on Wednesdays for the next month, or whatever, so they don't have to ask, because it's going to be a great gift, but if you give them like a cute little certificate, they're not going to call you
exactly.
have that meal.
No, you have to go ahead and kind of do the problem solving for them and tell them what you will do. And I love that. Be specific.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh,
Go
no,
ahead
you're
and finish
fine.
your
No, that's
sentence.
exactly a great point, and that's something else that we'll talk about further with grief. But, when people are going through times where they are this overwhelmed, I think that it's very important to not give them an opt-out. You just have to sort of forcefully, like you said, say, next Tuesday dinner, what are you allergic to? Not, would you like me to bring you dinner on Tuesday? Because, and I think, no offense to the man in the room, but I think us females try to be superwomen. And so we take on often more than we should, and we do not have that beautiful ability to say the word no. So I think, being very, very specific. And then also things that are supportive to their growth, whether it be religious books of support, the whole chicken soup for the soul concept, because sometimes they just need a time to get out of that bubble. And often they do get, breaks. Sometimes it's 2 a.m., but sometimes they need that break to step away from the reality of their everyday. So things that...
And, that's important, because what I know with being in this industry is that overnight is very difficult. It's, time, like you said, people with Alzheimer's or any form of dementia don't live on a calendar. And sometimes at night, they're up all night, and you're worried about their safety. And so really, one of the best gifts you can give is, hey, I'm staying over Saturday night, and you're sleeping.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And as a newer mom, that was one of the best things that was given to me with a newborn was, hey, you're taking a nap. And I was very stubborn still at that point and tried to fight it. But, it was one of the best things that I was ever given. So...
And you're a better caregiver when you get some good sleep. So, oh my goodness, if a whole family could get together and on Christmas just give the caregiver one night a week between 4 people, that's a month where the caregiver gets to sleep. And that would be a great routine to get them to do.
Hey, Jeannie, I was
love that.
thinking...
And it costs nothing. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, I was thinking my mother had dementia, and the female Guy Rowe, our brother and sister Rowe, I didn't know when to get involved because my sister was the primary caregiver. She's the one that had this calendar. She's the one that we went to ask, what do you think about us going out next week? And usually I got a response, well, Mom has this doctor's appointment, or Mom has to go here, because so much medical involvement there. How do we, as someone who's not involved, how can we approach our loved one who's caring for them to get permission or say, how can I get involved? I mean, what's appropriate there? Because we feel intrusive sometimes because it is a very busy type of daily activity with someone you don't understand about the stories that you're hearing. Mom did this, Mom did that, Mom threw her medication away. We need to get involved, but we never know what that door is.
That's a tricky situation. Sometimes the person who's the primary caregiver really gets a lot of secondary benefits and other satisfaction or control or whatever by being in charge of everything. And it also keeps them busy so they don't have to focus on the emotional impact of what's happening with their loved one. I think it's important to go ahead and set the record that you want the experience of being the caregiver. And how can you do that? Yes, you want to relieve them. You want to tag them out as it were, so that they have a break. But if that doesn't work, then also say, then I want this for me. I want to know how mom really behaves, so I want this experience. This would be a gift to me to become a caregiver. I want to be more involved. So you can try different approaches. You can try the approach of, I know how much is going on, and I want to give you a break, but sometimes people don't take that well. So you may want to come at it from a different strategy and say, this would be a gift for me to have this time and opportunity to be this involved with mom, and this is what my schedule is. Can you tell me what days work?
Yeah, so we need to educate ourselves
Yes.
as a secondary caregiver and how that we can get to know mom as she is, and to get to know her
Yes.
through the holidays and help our children understand why mom is rocking back and forth or trying to get up and we're redirecting and so forth.
Helping, being supportive siblings in the caregiving role is like a whole other topic. I think that we could I love that you brought that up, and I would love to come back and talk about it.
And I imagine that's even harder if your loved one is far away, because you are going to show up at the holidays, and there may be some resentment with the caregiver that is there full time, and they might not see it as, I want to help you. It's like, oh, fair-haired so-and-so.
And that's
it's-
going to
yeah.
really, I think, be addressed also in our second hour with grieving, because grieving is also the long loss that happens with dementia is a long grieving process. So let's talk about some of the safety gifts, though, if you don't mind. I'm going to go ahead and just shift us just a little bit.
Okay, so what gifts would be great to give in terms of safety?
Okay, for safety, having special medication boxes with alarms and timers so that people are safely getting their medication if they're still at home, and that you don't have to necessarily, and just depends where they are in their continuum of memory loss. It will work earlier on as long as they're participating. When their dementia is too advanced, it will not be appropriate, because they may take the pills out of the box and then not put them in their mouths, or go get the water, turn around, and they can't remember if those were the pills. So if it's something during the earlier stages, having an automated pill dispensing system would be a lovely thing. Having driver safety classes would be a great thing for folks who are still driving, but everyone's starting to get just a little bit antsy about whether or not this is appropriate. AARP.org has some great safety classes. They have a listing of what's available in your area. Installing door alarms for people who tend to wander or feel the need to get out more. And you can find different alarms. Radio Shack has some. Then there's a home improvementscatalog.com. www.improvementscatalog.com has some really cool devices, safety devices. But again, that might be something when folks are at an earlier stage. Emergency response pendant systems, the medical alerts that you press the button and it goes to a unit that's tapped into your phone line so that it calls for assistance or for medical help if needed. Those are great things.
All of these are so great, and as you're talking, it seems like just recently, at least here in Georgia, there's been so many Maddie's calls regarding lost loved ones with dementia, because wandering is a symptom or a sign of this disease and will occur, and you have got to put precautions in place to ensure that your loved ones are safe.
Definitely.
And so giving the gift of one of these, some of them, like you had mentioned, the pendants or the bracelets or whatever kind of monitoring system it is that your loved one would wear, would alert if they went past a certain amount of yards or what have you from the home.
There are all kinds of
life-saving.
fabulous technologies now. I mean, the technology field with aging is just booming. As you can imagine, there's all kinds of interesting things that don't necessarily impact on the privacy of the individual. Some people are not comfortable with the nanny cam concept, but there are all kinds of other things that are out there. And there are GPS trackers that are hooked up to the phone, and if they get outside of a certain radius, you could get a text that they've left the yard. I mean, there's just amazing things out there.
And you could leave them in the car, because a lot of these folks, one of them drove to a hotel and couldn't remember where to get back.
Yes.
How to get back home. So if they had just had something in the car, they could have tracked their loved one. So just things that people wouldn't normally think about would be such a tremendous gift for a caregiver.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
And then, Michael, just to go back to the whole sibling role, you know, if you're not the caregiver, that would be something to really show your sibling, hey, look, I know you've got mom 24/7. I know I can't be there to help you, so this is what I want to do, and pay for monthly at $25 a month or whatever.
Exactly.
Just for
Yes.
your peace of mind and safety.
Yeah, and I know the
know?
role that we usually play as a sibling who's not involved is financial, and that's how we try to compensate is through money and gifts and so forth. That's a
But
good idea.
these are, wonderful, thoughtful ways that your
Oh,
loved
so
one will
thoughtful.
know that you get it.
Yeah.
And I think that's that level of support, even though it may not be a physical, that's the emotional support and the financial support kind of put together, that it's a really useful thing to alleviate stress for them on the ground, that if you're not right there, I mean, the folks...
And I think as a sibling who's not the caregiver, I think we do make that offer known to the caregivers. What can we do? And ramps or things that we can help them out in making the home more house-friendly for that type of illness that the patient has. So, yeah, that's a good idea to make that known to us who don't know what to do.
Yep.
And we're sort of lost in it all.
So are there other safety gifts that you would recommend before we get on to our next type of gift giving?
I think there's a couple rooms in the house that we always like to focus on. Two primarily would be kitchen and bathroom. So if there is modifications that can be done, walk-in tub systems, etc. And again, I hate to always say it depends on where they are in their disease process, but there are definitely some things that it's just like anything. If you're the caregiver and you're staring at it all day, sometimes you lose your creativity to come up with positive solutions. So sometimes being an outsider, not the primary caregiver, you come into a situation and go, hang on a minute, if this was this and this was this. So for example, like something as simple as an electric tea kettle with an automatic shut off. So if mom is convinced that tea is her thing and she likes to do that every morning, that can be extremely dangerous if she's putting a tea kettle on a stove and walking away. So having little things like that still gives her the ability to do for herself, which is what we talked about a little earlier in independence, but also gives we really don't want the house burned down scenario in place. And I think, being creative and putting that new spin on things, sometimes not just saying the global, how can we help, but I thought about this. Do you think this is a good idea for mom?
Mm-hmm.
I have a suggestion as well. If you're thinking about home modifications or even assistive technology, there's a great resource so that you can find skilled people to help with ramps or elevators or home modifications or whatever, wherever you live. The National Aging in Place Council is a fabulous nonprofit. There are chapters around the country. We have a very active chapter here in Atlanta. I think it's naipc.org. And that's a great place to find the folks who actually do the modifications, so that you're not searching the web and going, I don't know if these guys are any good, and I don't even know what mom needs. This is a way that you can really hit that pain point in a very skilled way, is to go to naipc.org.
Yeah, and as I'm listening to Brandy talk, I never thought of what mom could do. I always thought mom had to be taken care of. And, that's something that we need to look at is what is she able to do and how can we assist her in doing that?
The most independence possible. So you always look at the safety risks, but anything that you can adjust the safety aspect so that they can still do it for themselves, you absolutely want them to do that.
Well, and I think we also have to remember...
On that note, let's talk about some gifts that we could give that would enhance their ability to be independent.
All right. I have to look through my notes.
You talked about some sensory stimulation gifts.
Yes. Well, here's some other things, though, for those who are still able to do some things for themselves. So other safety items that kind of thinking about those auto shut-off techniques or technologies. So if folks can't really safely use a microwave oven anymore, there is a EuroPro toaster oven with an automatic shut-off, and it's large enough for Meals on Wheels pans or frozen dinners. And then cell phones sometimes become problems. We get more and more, smarter and smarter phones that are not as user-friendly. The teenagers can figure them out, but our seniors, it may be a little bit too much. There's too many apps, there's too many buttons, there's too many things, and it doesn't look like a telephone that is recognizable to them. So Jitterbug has a Samsung senior-friendly type of phone, month-to-month plans. It's called a Jitterbug. You can go to jitterbug.com and get a very simple cell phone.
I know, Jeannie, with my mom, we had the landline phones, and we got a telephone with gigantic numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we don't have that anymore. So, yeah, the cell phones, we need to, that's a good thought, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think, too, if you're seeing certain behaviors, for example, we always want to assume everything that they're doing wrong is a behavior. But let's say that mom is really antsy when she's in the wheelchair, and she keeps trying to get up and keeps trying to get up. Really think through things like, is it because the wheelchair is uncomfortable? It might not be that mom is just antsy or having an anxiety panic attack. It might be truly that she's not real comfy in that chair. And so thinking about things like wheelchair cushions, gel mattress overlays, things like that can increase comfort, actually in turn promote safety because you're looking at the quote-unquote behavior from a different angle.
Right. I know for Christmas, we got together and bought Mom a recliner, but we didn't think of the safety aspects of it and her needs and just not sitting in a recliner all day, but a wheelchair or something mobile and something like that. I'm glad I'm here today.
We're glad you're here too, Michael.
We are.
So, ladies, I say it every time. We only have a few more minutes left. We've talked about a lot of safety gifts that are wonderful ideas for gift giving during the holidays to help caregivers and loved ones with dementia be more comfortable and be more independent. Did we miss anything that you want to discuss regarding safety? And then I'm going to ask you for other gift-giving tips in the general category for whatever else we might miss before we have to say goodbye today.
Nothing else on safety that just jumps off the page. You can always do a search. There's things that are being invented all the time.
And I love it because many of the gifts we've talked about, too, don't cost a lot of money, such as giving time and making meals and giving services. But in terms of the loved one with dementia, any thoughts on gifts that would be good for that loved one specifically? I have some thoughts, but wanted to ask for
things
your
like
opinion.
Scrapbooks with old photographs are wonderful. Family videos and spending time with them are wonderful. And then one of the things that we just talked about with our team recently, the gift of touch is a fabulous thing at almost any stage in their dementia. A geriatric massage therapist who best knows how to deal with somebody both with the aging skin, body, conditions, and also those with memory impairment. It is a fabulous thing for them to do. They don't get a lot of touch. And
you really, I love what you said, someone who is specifically experienced and trained in geriatric massage, because you may have you have to start differently. You can only hit certain areas because it is a disease that causes confusion. So you can't just give any kind of a massage gift. It's a very important point.
Exactly. But it's a beautiful thing. Helps with hydrating the skin in the wintertime when the heat is on and we get very dry. It can help relax people who have some agitation. It can help with touch. Brandy, what do you want to?
I think something just to briefly touch on before we have to go are some of those sensory stimulation gifts, and just remembering that the person very well could enjoy what they've always enjoyed. You just have to think of different ways to modify that gift to be appropriate to the stage that they're in. So if they always enjoyed movies, very well they still will. If they loved a warm cup of tea, they probably still do. And again, focusing on what they can, not what they can't do, and what they can like and not what they don't like. So it's just very, very important.
Thank you so much. Wonderful ideas for making it through the busy, chaotic holiday season. If you have any more questions or want to get in touch with Lisa Meeks or Brandy Hackett regarding professional geriatric care management or any of the topics we discussed today, please contact them at Senior Care Options at 770-579-9177. You can also look them up on the web at www.seniorcareops.com. Brandy, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jean.
And Mike, appreciate the help as a co-host.
Enjoyed it.
I'm Jeannie Pete. Thanks for listening. Have a blessed day and week ahead, and listen here same time next week and every week. Homestead Hope Foundation is your resource for a healthy life. God bless.